Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lasham Daily Briefing for Friday, the 27th of February, 2026. Starting off with the synoptic picture, midnight, the last night to begin. You can see here a series of fronts passing through a warm front, a sort of midnight last night. That with it brought quite a lot of wet and windy weather with the occasional squall line. So it was quite a wild evening in some parts of the country. By midday today, we've got this low here that's actually centered sort of towards Lincolnshire way. That with it has a cold front that's moving through probably more or less just now, sort of followed closely behind by a bit of an occlusion. The direction in which that goes remains to be seen. But certainly beginning the day with wet, windy weather with lots of low cloud, potentially clearing later into this morning and early afternoon. You also see a bit of ridge of high pressure starting to form, so potentially some nicer weather on the horizon. Looking into the weekend, bit of a gap in the poor weather tomorrow. That ridge of high pressure continuing to work its way up towards us, holding off some of that less settled low pressure, but still very messy situation in the North Atlantic there. Into Sunday, more frontal activity and rain, I'm afraid, with strong winds from the southwest. And much the same into Monday with a cold front expected to pass around about uh, to today, looking at the sat pic, pretty solid cloud across much of the UK, to the south, clearing to the west. See evidence of that front there having moved through. Rain radar. Worst of the band moved through, although it is still raining locally here, albeit fairly light. Looking at the Met Office rain forecast, just run that through. See that light rain sort of dissipating by around 11 o'clock. The occasional shower coming through. And that sort of continues throughout the day, really, with that southerly flow to the wind there. By sort of early after to mid-afternoon, quite a lot of rain on the west coast there coming in with that occlusion, but not becoming much of an issue for us until later on this evening. The TAF over at Odium, fairly extensive there. That sort of tells a bit of a story. They're showing 210 degrees, 17 gusting 27 with 10k viz, broken cloud 800 feet and becoming 15 knot winds from 200 degrees this morning. And also for that earlier part this morning until about 11 o'clock, 7,000 meters viz, light rain and drizzle, broken cloud of 500 feet. So that's 300 feet at Lasham here, which more or less compares with what we can see outside. And then that's continuing with rain and drizzle throughout today, potentially becoming few at 2,000 feet, scattered at 2,500 feet between 11 and 2 o'clock, depending on what that humidity level is. And then also potentially there's a prob 30 of light showers with scattered cloud at 600 feet, and that's between 11 and 2 as well. So they can't quite work out what's going on there, but essentially it's unlikely to clear a huge amount, although there may be a window that we can use. Farnborough is much the same, a little bit shorter there in terms of the TAF. 210 degrees, 9 knots, 10 kilometers viz, scattered at 2,000 feet. And there's tempo between 9 and 11, 6,000 meter viz, with drizzle broken at 1,000 feet. And potentially 4,000 with drizzle as well, broken at 600 feet. So generally not very good at all there. Potential window between those showers. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens to the cloud base. Winds aloft to the south of us, 220 degrees, 30 knots, more or less, consistently there. And to the north, very light indeed. So certainly expecting probably more influence from the south there with that direction of airflow, somewhere in the region of 30 knots at flying height. On the ground, looking at windy here for the surface wind, showing a steady southwesterly flow across the airfield. Local Met Office forecast giving strengths of only about 12 or 13 knots, gusting towards 22, 23 knots, although the TAF at Odium is suggesting a little bit stronger. in places. So again, that will have something which need to monitor. It is fairly strong out there at the moment, and so that's one for us to watch. GFS, warmest part of the day, predicting 12 degrees centigrade, a dew point of 10, so not a particularly significant split there, especially with the damp air. And although we've got a slight warning coming up here on the weather station, we have got 9.9 degrees with a dew point of 8.4. So if you're on the south side looking to the west, you can see not particularly optimistic there. We'll just refresh that. No real change there whatsoever. Very poor visibility, low cloud and rain. So monitor that throughout. Looking at sky sight here, their cross section, more or less depicting an accurate situation at the moment with low cloud and rain. That's suggesting it's going to continue with a sort of maximum cloud base around sort of 12 o'clock being just north of 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet before rain at 1 o'clock. And that's based on convection as well as passing showers, looking to be some fairly unstable air, so potential for a little bit of soaring if the cloud base were to allow it, but it's looking fairly unlikely. And then possibly clearing again into the afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock onwards. Top Metier there showing the cloud distribution, a lot of low-level cloud to begin with around about 8 o'clock this morning. Running that through, you can see it does sort of persist until mid to late morning, where it starts to break up with a little bit of cumulus below the orbital Q before low cloud sort of reappearing early afternoon. No sort of real sign of showers there, so a lot of cloud to contend with, possibly a brief gap as all the models have been suggesting. It's just going to be a case of waiting and seeing what happens outside the window. Those times there, nothing of great significance, particularly given that forecast. So yeah, to glider bookings, we've got 321s allocated to booked flying and one for the casual list, as well as a K13 for trial lessons. Obviously, those wouldn't be going ahead if we have any booked. Plenty of single-seater availability, and the simulator is available as normal. So possibly a good use of our time this morning if we've got any exercises we needed to practice. No movements to our knowledge at this time. And in summary, low pressure over the UK with a cold front passing overnight and a small occlusion behind. Low cloud and rain beginning, possibly clearing late morning to early afternoon. There's a gusty southwesterly wind throughout, and therefore, if we do fly, we'll operate runway 23, launching off the hard, and there'll be cables on the east side. There's that airfield setup with winching off the hard. If we were to error to, it would be based on a runway inspection, quite a lot of rain overnight, and check the field condition, and then making sure that we do land well into the field, given that the stronger gusty wind. That's all for me this morning. Hopefully we'll get something out of today, and if we do, see you out there and keep it safe. Thank you.